Thank you all for being here on this particular day, this particular weekend. We celebrate Father's Day today, and we celebrate the commemoration of Juneteenth tomorrow. And we come and have another large celebration today as we baptize Henry here in just a few moments. It is a day of celebration, and thank you for coming. And in this time especially, it's the summer when mostly we end up dispersing a lot of the times, and I'm reminded of a time I dispersed and had a summer job. During my college years, I noticed that a lot of friends went and worked on dude ranches out west, and I thought that looked like some fun. So I contacted my uncle and went and lived with him and decided to work on a farm as a hydrotubular technician. That's the name I at least put on my resume for the job that I had. I worked on an agricultural farm where my main job was to move 40 feet segments of irrigation pipe 10 feet at a time every few hours to ensure that the farm was well watered. And it turns out dude ranches and agricultural farms work quite differently. A 12-hour day is actually rather short from what I learned on an actual farm. In so doing, however, I did learn a lot about farm, and these metaphors within our gospel just a few minutes ago make a little bit more sense to me, some clarity. We see first, and I did not work with animals, although there were animals there. I wasn't allowed to even go to that side of things. But we had a farm where I understand more about the harvest. But first, we have the lost sheep. Sheep without a shepherd. And this is in Matthew's gospel that we have this metaphor here. And this is a transition within the gospel where Matthew's now sending the disciples out. And he names all of them as if in postscript. The readers must have known these names from somewhere else. Otherwise, he wouldn't have renamed them here. He didn't mention them till this chapter. But this is a transition where he sends them out. The lost sheep of Israel is to where they are to go. The lost sheep first. Not to the Gentiles, but to the lost sheep, which if you read the entirety of Matthew's gospel, didn't make a whole lot of sense to me because Matthew's gospel is in reaching out to everybody, perhaps especially the Gentiles. But it's not them that Jesus is sending them out, it's to the lost sheep. Now this image, we can read in 1 Kings, 2 Chronicles, all throughout the Hebrew scriptures and other areas about the lost sheep of Israel. What is known throughout that is that God was always with them. God was always with the lost sheep of Israel. And this is an asking of the disciples to go out and tend to them as they bring them back. Bring them back and let them know that the God that they proclaim and worship has always been there. Has always been there. The second metaphor, the harvest is plentiful, but the laborers are few. So when I worked on the farm, you got the field to the place where it is able to be harvested. And when the crop is ready, you don't waste any time. You don't waste any time. You get the crop in as soon as you can. You don't want the crop to spoil, and you want to fit as many crops in, as many harvests as you can in during a summer at a time. A bad summer would see and yield 2 harvests. A good summer, 4. And you might run out of water, and you don't know when that might come. So here, Matthew is talking about the immediacy. The harvest needs to happen now. The crop is ready. That's what Jesus is talking about when he's saying, I'm sending you out now. The harvest is ready to go to the lost sheep and then extend from Israel to those who are beyond. Now, what does that mean for us here today? How are we being sent out? How do we identify as we read this gospel? Well, I first look at who Christians are in the world today. How are we perceived, perhaps? When you go out into the world and you do a poll, if you're a public opinion poll, how are Christians necessarily perceived as a whole? It's defined within political parties so many times, or political stance. Or the connotation is somewhat negative. It is defined as who we exclude instead of who we include, far from the gospel that we proclaim from this altar? How is it that we go out into the world, and how is it that we can carry this message in a world that deeply needs to hear this gospel, that needs to hear a God that tended to those who were like sheep without a shepherd, the same God who brought the Israelites through the Red Sea, the same God who is with all peoples who have ever been lost in any generation? This is the message we carry out, and I see us responding in the three different ways. First way is I always read the gospel and I automatically try to identify with the disciples, or in this case, apostle. Matthew says apostle for the first and only time here, those being sent out. I want us to reverse that for just a moment. What if we just, in our prayers, identify as a lost sheep for a moment? As we identify as the lost sheep, what would it be to be God searching for us, for the disciples to be searching for the gospel's words, the Spirit to be searching for us, this gospel that we proclaim each and every day to find us? What is it that we truly believe about the gospel? And we say it here at St. Andrews all the time, and we do it. Let's define it for ourselves. Let's know what it is that we are defining, not a gospel of exclusion, but a gospel that seeks all. A gospel that seeks to carry God's love no matter who you are at any given place and time, no matter who you love. A gospel that seeks the full humanity of every human being. A gospel that preaches love of inclusion instead of exclusion, where all are welcome truly means all are welcome. What does the gospel mean to you? That's what we look at as the lost sheep first. That's when, after we see that, we can go and look at being from the apostles, to be sent out. We all know people who have dropped away from church, from faith altogether, because of things that have happened in their lives, or because this gospel didn't preach to them, or perhaps the gospel preached against them, or was used as a weapon against them. What would it be to carry that same gospel to those who are not here? Even here at St. Andrews, if we look to our left and right, you can probably think of somebody, if you've been here for a while, or at other churches, that isn't here anymore, that used to be here. If they're going somewhere else to another church, that's great, or some people have fallen away entirely. What would it be to reach out to people who are no longer sitting here? I'm not talking about just on vacation, but who are not here anymore. And reaching out with the gospel that we believe here. What about in a world where people view Christianity within the public opinion polls as a group that discriminates? What would it be to reach out and live the gospel we proclaim even more fully, being sent out, saying this is the gospel that we hear each and every Sunday. It's not what's written in the papers. This is the gospel that we hear, preach, the gospel that I'm looking to live. And then, what would it be to continue to live that as part of the harvest, being harvested, perhaps? And we can be at any one of these phases. And we've all been in perhaps identifying with the lost sheep, where we know we need that loving God, where we seek to touch the fringe of the cloak that we read just a couple Sundays ago. And we can hang there for a minute so that we can be found. And as we're found, that gives us the knowledge and faith of the gospel to go be the gospel in the world. That summer, as I was out there, I learned a lot about culture. I learned that working on a farm was actually not necessarily fun, but provided a lot of work ethic lessons. So when people ask me on the resume what a hydrotubular technician was, it was a strategy to be able to talk about work ethic, but also learning about what it is to be amongst the different people, even within the United States, and what it is and who I am. And I noticed what I missed while being away. Perhaps part of the hole that was there, a hole seeking to be filled, a hole that could be filled with our loving God. As we go into this weekend, celebrating a true freedom given on Juneteenth, as we go into this world, as we take breaks on vacations, how might we carry the gospel that we proclaim here? How might we share it even more deeply in the world, within our relationships, within our lives? Just in a minute, Henry, we're going to be up here, don't worry. But we're going to talk about we're going to all renew our own baptismal covenant, to proclaim by word and deed the good news of Christ, to proclaim by word, by what we say, and deed, by what we do and how we live our lives, the good news of the gospel, the good news of Christ. We all support Henry, the parents and godparents, and each one of us acknowledges that we are worthy to be found in God's eyes. We are beloved, and we are sent out from this place to carry the love of the gospel to a world that sorely needs it. Amen.
Amen.